Are Bay Area home prices dropping? What's going to be happening as we enter in the fall season? My name is Spencer Sue, and in the last 5 years, I have personally helped over 250 families with their moves in the Bay Area. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing, let's schedule a time to chat. My contact details are below, and we will be able to help create a game plan for you. But at the same time, because I'm helping a client every single week get into contract, I am able to see a lot of the different things that are happening with the marketplace. So I want you to be an educated buyer or seller so that you understand what is going on so that you can make a game plan accordingly. Now let's take a look at the data and the stats itself. When we look at Alameda County, San Francisco, San Mateo County, Santa Clara County for residential properties, we have a decline in price versus the previous times of the springtime. Take a look at this. April, May, June, all hovered at $1.5 million as a median price. And if you take a look at this now in July, it has dropped to 1.4 million. So the very first question you should think of is this normal? Is it normal to have a decline in the summer times? Is it normal to have a decline in the July times? Let's take a look at the last 3 years and let's see. So let's take a look. Should this be a panic or is this the norm? So if you look at the last 3 years, we're going to be looking at the stats momentarily, and all of this is done in real time. So you're going to see all of the latest information before everybody else sees it, especially from the media. But take a look at 2022. Take a look at 2023. 2022 followed the same thing. Springtime 1.5, 1.5. June already dropped to 1.43. July dropped to 1.35. Right? That's interesting. Take a look at 2023 last year. April 1325, May 135, June 1.4. July 1355, decline. And then it actually picked up a little bit of September, October, and it declines for the rest of the year. So the fact is absolutely home prices have declined. Anyone that would tell you otherwise would be lying to you clearly. So make sure you're valuing the properties properly. That being said, it is still an increase year over year, even with this big decline versus the previous time. Right? And there are maybe signs that this may not be ending anytime soon in terms of potentially a year over year growth. But for now, maybe this is a time for you to take advantage, especially where a lot of people have a lot of different questions in the air. Who's going to win the election? What will that do for real estate? I will go over that in a separate video down the road. You may also wonder, with some of these upcoming real estate changes, how would that impact things? On August 17th, there's going to be some substantial impacts that you as a buyer need to be aware of when buying property. You may be paying more money out of pocket than ever before, right? The sellers may be making more money than ever before. These are all different scenarios that may happen. But when you look at the stats and when you see this is actually fairly normal. Now, it may seem like a drastic pullback because we've had such a busy time over the last couple of years. But if you even see these numbers, I mean, take a look at this, right? 2022 dropped mainly because interest rates spiked, and so it dropped that way. 2023, nothing really happened through the last year, right? There wasn't anything too crazy, good or bad. But you can see it still even dropped during that time. So this is a seasonality. It would be even normal if it dropped and then kept. If it'll be unusual if it kept dropping indefinitely, but it probably will drop and it likely will somewhat stabilize. I would not expect August to be anything better. You probably have another drop, but then you'll probably see an increase coming back up for the fall time, which is what you've seen here. Even in that time when things were really, really really like just dark at the end of 2022. So that should give you a pretty good idea what to expect, but we'll likely see some further downwards trends as we enter in and finish the August month. So once again, there may be some really, really good opportunities for you as a buyer. If you're a seller, you got to be mindful of this. This is the actual stats. Prices have been dropping. It's still a year over year gain from what you've had last year, which is all positive news. This is still some of the highest Julys it has ever been. So in general, just be mindful of that, of the times that we're in. Now, let me give you a little bit of breakdown of the different counties. Right? So if you look at Santa Clara County, let's see how any of these perform versus others. If you look at single family Single family home prices July 2024 is at 1.865 million. It has been declining for the last 2 months. If you take a look at the condos and townhome market for Santa Clara County, in general, July was not a good month. It has a pretty deep discount versus what we saw previously. Let's look at San Mateo County. Let's see if they're doing any better when it comes to condos and townhomes. Right, condos and townhomes in there have actually done pretty well. So it is really, really important to understand and know about each of these specific areas, but because some areas are doing clearly better than others. If you look at San Mateo County, July 2024 numbers, they're actually quite good. They've actually have increased. A lot of other places have declined. I made multiple offers in different properties in Hillsboro, and in Hillsboro, they still have a lot of offers, and the kind of the minimum price there is at least at $4 million. So it really, really depends on the specific area of how this may impact what kind of properties you're looking at. San Francisco, you can see it has been a decline, but it hasn't been too bad, right? You can see it's been fairly gradual. At this point, San Francisco single families at 1.6 million. If you look at the condos, townhomes that are there, mostly it's going to be condos. You can see condos, interesting enough, has a big spike. This may be because of a few select properties that have really skewed this up, but interesting stat to see either way. Let's look at Alameda County for condos and townhomes. It is generally more affordable there, but you can also see a decline. But what about single family? Are people still buying homes in Alameda County for single family? The answer is yes, but it has also been a big decline throughout the months. And last but not least, let's take a look at Contra Costa County, which will be the most affordable options throughout the Bay. Contra Costa County single family has remained very, very resilient. Part of it has to do with the fact that it's at $915,000 for a single family home. That has something very strong to do with it. If we take a look at condos and townhomes, similar change. So you can see certain areas are more resilient than others, but there's a lot of areas that have already seen a pullback. Now, when it comes to the amount of inventory, this is what I want you guys to ultimately see. I want you guys to see this as a macro. Let's just put all of those places back together again. All right, so we'll look at San Mateo County, San Francisco County, Santa Clara County, and excuse me, I'm doing this all in real time, so there is literally no manipulation that I can even possibly do when it comes to this stat. And fortunately, I'm very well accustomed to using this portal, so you guys all get a good glimpse. Take a look at the number of new listings, right? So July 2024 for all those counties, 3,875. Now, I always want to compare, like, how does this compare to before? Let's look at these numbers. 3,875 is significantly higher than what we had last year, right? It's also, even the last month was also higher than what we have last year. Now, these numbers are quite a bit less than what we've had in the previous years. But then again, the previous years was a red hot time because when you have low rates, a lot of sellers were willing to sell to move on. And then that really accumulated a lot more excitement and a lot more need to move. But at this point, like, this number is probably going to be hovering about throughout, right? So it is lower than what we had in April, May. So the number of new homes that you will see moving forward in August will probably be around the same level if you look at history. But September, October, you may get a little bit of a bump up. You can see, like, last year, it had a little bit of bump relative to the year. You can also see even in 2022, which was a down year when it comes to the market, right? These are all options that were there that are likely to occur over the next couple of months. But the number of volume is important to note. Now, a big also thing that I want you to also see is the number of homes that will have a decrease in price. You literally just saw yourself that home prices have been declining, right? And so if home prices are declining, you're going to likely see an increased amount of listings decrease. But is it an alarming amount? That's what I want you to review together with me. So if you take a look at these stats, list price decrease for this July, there's 1,246 homes in the counties as an aggregate. Now, the question I want you to see is that, like, how is that? Is that normal? Is that normal for July? Or just too people being greedy? Let's take a look at the stats for last year. Last year, there was 807. So there is still, like, there's quite a bit more. There's equivalent to, what is that? 30% more? Sorry, no, 50% more 50% more prices that are being decreased. Now, if you run those numbers versus last year, we have more listings than last year, that for sure, right? But if you look at the numbers, what is that, like a 33% increase in new listings? Maybe a little bit less than that, 30% increase in new listings. So in general, the as an aggregate, there is more being decreased this time around. So I think we will have a bigger, like that's why we've had a bigger decline, but we will likely see a little bit of a bigger dip, is my guess, when it comes to August. And the question is, will things stabilize? Now, there will be some interesting stats, as you can see, because let's take a look together of the stock market. Stock market had an up and down year, but it wasn't too drastic, right? 1% off from a month ago. If you look at the NASDAQ was off, what, a little bit more, 4.63%. So there's been a hit on the stock market side. Depending on the asset class you're in, there'll be different impacts. But the biggest thing that we will definitely keep an eye out for is the mortgage rates. The mortgage rates have dropped significantly. If you look at, let's just say, this year, or sorry, in July to August, you can see that the average amount was from 7.14%, and now is it at 6.62%. I mean, we're talking about half a percent difference. Half a percent difference is the equivalent of about 5% purchasing power. So this is a big deal, because on one end you have some softening and you have some reduction of prices that we have already saw, that you see more price declines. So that is on one aspect. On the other end, because things have softened, for inflation has cooled down significantly, the jobs numbers aren't as good. You see a lot more people losing the ability to have remote work and getting back to the office. For those reasons, you then see also a weakened treasury 10-year treasury yield, which then you also have a weakened mortgage rate, which then, though, for those that are working and those are still actively buying, will significantly help their purchasing power. And so there's really two ways to always look at this. On one end, it's a positive thing for those that are home buyers, because the cost of borrowing is now less, which is also, quite frankly, typically drives higher numbers of homes for sale. Case in point, you look at the previous years, when you have low interest rates, those sellers are rarely selling and then renting. Most sellers will be selling and then buying. But an important decision for them is interest rates. It's all relativity and how long they can stand and survive in their current place. Right? Now, they also, to be fair, have the option to just rent out the home. They don't have to sell it. They can just rent it out depending on their financial situation, because rent has gone up over time. But at least it creates more possibilities for them to sell. Really, you only have distress if the sellers all lose their jobs, of especially if they have lower rates. If they somehow lose their job and they can't afford it, that's when you have the negative aspect where the buyers aren't in the market, but the sellers have to force sell. And so that's where you get more opportunities. But we're not in anywhere close to that kind of scenario. But think about it, right? If you're owned a home and if you want to move up or do something else, you still have a place. You may decide to rent it out, or you may sell it, because money is still fairly plentiful all throughout. But at least potentially creates a new product. But that only happens if rates are specific lower, or we remain steady at these numbers for a foreseeable future, which is because then people kind of out, like, I just can't wait anymore, right? My kids are going to elementary school, they're going to middle school, they're going to high school. I become an empty nester. Right? There's certain things like that that doesn't encourage people like that. That kind of creates this stasis. That's the idea. So you got an idea of all the different numbers when it comes to the Bay Area marketplace. I broke it down by county. I broke it down by asset types. Gave you a little bit of an idea of the stock market, the mortgage rates. I suspect that the August numbers are not going to look good. I think we're going to have further declines. And so further declines may mean a really good opportunity for you to be able to buy in the dip, especially as the mortgage rates are now a whole lot better than it was in the beginning of this year. So if you're a buyer, my suggestion, take advantage of this. If you're planning to buy anyways, take advantage of this. Your stocks have declined a little bit, depending on which stock you're at. You may want to divest some of it. If you're selling, you really got to think hard about it, right? Are you betting that it's going to keep going down? Do you bet that it will rebound up? That is your choice to make, right? In terms of timing of it, it is still higher than it was last year. So there is that for you to be mindful of, and for you to consider. My name is Spencer. Once again, if you like this, share this with some friends. Be sure to subscribe. And you got to reach out if you want to set up a strategy call so we can go over a game plan with you together. 408 547 4590. See you next one.